Howdy folks, my name is Brett Carnwright. I'm sitting here in my Phoenix 721. I'm going to do a little bit of an instructional video on how I set my Lowrance units up. Well folks, as you can see here, I'm running dual HDS 12s on my console on a Bass Boat Technologies mount. On the left I have a Gen 2, and on the right I have a Gen 3. Starting off, I'll talk about how I do my data overlay. I run speed, water temperature, time, voltage, and depth, all on my Gen 2 unit, and I keep this unit free of any overlay. That way it's just full, scanning and nothing in there to block my view. It's a real clean look, and it's just how I like to do it. Starting off over here on my chart, I click menu. Nothing special here except I overlay my structure. That way when I'm graphing on this unit, I can see what I've covered on my map. That's about it for that. Coming in my sonar, hit menu again. My frequency, I run that on high chirp because I have a Gen 3 unit. If not, I'd run 200 kilohertz all the time. Advanced settings, keep my noise rejection on low and my surface clarity high. That's just how I like to do it. It gives me a real clean screen, no clutter or anything along the surface. Scroll speed normal, ping speed max. Go back here. Sensitivity, always run this between 75 and 80. On manual I don't use auto, and color line I leave stock at 76 as well. View, I like to run palette 1, it's my favorite. 13 I'll run if I'm in a lot of grass. Always turn on my amplitude scope. That gives you the flasher on the right hand side. And my source on this unit, of course, because I'm running, this is my master unit, I'm sourcing my sonar through the Gen 3 unit. I don't have a transducer connected to this Gen 2 unit. Over here to the structure scan side of things. I run 455 kilohertz all the time. I never use 800. Just not a big fan of it. I get a better picture with 455 at all depths. I'll run about 120 feet out to each side, and if I'm in real deep water I might go out to like 200 or 250, and I can still see pretty well. Advanced settings, I don't do anything in here. I leave everything stock. Surface clarity is off. Contrast on my lake, which is Lake Champlain, between 40 and 60 percent seems to be the best contrast. Depending on if you're in a hard bottom, I'll run it around 40 because it'll be a little too hot, with a 60% contrast. And then when I'm in a lot of sand, soft bottom, up shallow, and in little bays, might bump it up to 60, whatever gives me the best picture. But I'm constantly always fooling with that. I'm running palette 6 for my side scan. That's just my favorite palette. Come over here to down scan. This again I'm running at 455 kilohertz. Advanced settings, surface clarity's off again. Nothing special there. Contrast, I'll run this always at around 68 or 70%. Right now I have it set at 69%. And palette 8, that's my favorite for down scan. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about my settings for my system settings, chart, sonar, and my network settings. Key beeps I always turn off. I don't like listening to the key beeps. Advanced, I like to come into user interface. I turn auto hide menu on. That is why my menu has always disappeared over here unless I pull it up. And then after no activity for 15 seconds it'll disappear. You can also get to that same settings page by hitting the power button or the pages button once and hitting settings. Back into my system. I'll come down here to chart. I like to turn on my heading extension for 1 mile. As you can see here, I have a 1 mile and broken into quarter-mile increments. And then that's all I do there. For sonar, I have network sonar turned on here. That way I'm networking with this unit to read my 2D. I don't like to overlay my downscan. My fishing mode, I use shallow water or freshwater. Come down here into installation. My transducer type, this is very important. If you look at the transducer cable where it connects into the unit, you'll see a little silver tag, and on that tag it'll have a name. This one is HST-WSBL, so that's why I have that selected. You hit save. Okay, back into my settings here. Come down here to network, data sources, GPS. I have a 0.1 on this boat, so I'll select auto 0.1, and heading sensor is always off my 0.1 as well. Okay, so this is how I like to set up my screens when I'm running around the lake. I'll have my Gen 2 unit with a map zoomed in pretty tight, along with 2D sonar, and then I'll have the Gen 3 unit with a giant map zoomed way out. I get off plane, I'll slap that pages button twice, and it'll bring me to full side scan. Every once in a while I might run side scan and down scan at the same time. If I'm in a tournament, I just want to see down scan, mapping, and sonar, I'll switch over to this screen here, which gives me a big map, a little bit of a down scan, and I might select like full screen sonar on this unit. If I'm fishing a tournament and I don't need to be running both graphs, it's a lot easier and quicker to just put one unit in standby to go up on this one turned off. I'll just run this screen, which is the same exact screen setup as my Gen 2 unit over here. I've got my data overlay on this screen now. I have depth. I'm running my Sonic hub off the Gen 3 unit also, and of course just mapping and sonar. My favorite screen, if I'm just running one graph, is right here. A big map, sonar, and side scan down here on the bottom. That way you get the full view here of side scan. You don't need the full page of side scan, just a little bit. I'll show you how you'd make this page, or how you delete pages on these units. You just hold down the button, you'll have a wrench pop up, or an X. I'm going to just delete that page with the X, and then I'm going to click here and build a page. I'm going to drag in chart, sonar, and structure scan. I don't like the way this is configured, so I'm going to click here, change my box layout, I'm going to move map to the left, sonar on the top right, then I'm going to click save. Now, I'm going to hit the pages button once, I'm going to pull up the button adjust splits, and I'm going to adjust my screen to maybe something like this. I'm going to hit save here, and now I need to overlay my data. So to do that, again, I hit the power button once, edit overlay, I pull up my menu, I click add at the top. GPS, I want speed over ground. Sonar, I want some depth, and water temperature. Minimize the sonar window. Come down here to time, throw in the time, and other is where you'll find your supply voltage. Now, I'm going to just drag my depth over here to the right hand side. I'm going to plus the speed over ground. My time's a little small, I'm going to blow that up, and I'll move my voltage down and hit save. Now I have all three screens on one unit. Back when I used to run one unit, this was probably the screen I ran most of the time, and if it wasn't that screen, it was just the basic mapping in 2D. Okay, so now we're up on the bow of my boat. As you can see, I have a HDS 12 Gen 3 on a precision sonar tall bracket, along with a Garmin 1222 XSV with pan optics mounted up here on a Balzow mount. I have a hydrowave tucked up under there on the bow plate. I have a bunch of cables coming out of that clamshell, and you can see here on my trolling motor, I've got the PS21 transducer for forward pan optics. I have a hydrowave speaker, and I have just the Lowrance 2D skimmer. My graph up here, I like to keep it simple. I run just a big map with a little bit of sonar on it. Every once in a while I might run this page, which is map downscan from the rear of the boat, along with 2D sonar off the front of the boat. Up here on the front, I've got my frequency set for high chirp. I'm pretty sure if you set it for medium chirp up here on the front, you won't have any crosstalk between the other units on the back if you do not put it in standby mode. Sensitivity 74%, 75, somewhere in there. Color line 76 again. I like to do amplitude scope, of course. Palette 1. Source, I want that to be this unit right here. I will go into my settings here for sonar. Network sonar, I like to turn that off up here. That way I don't read the transducers off the back deck. Chart, I have a heading extension, of course. My system, no key beeps. Advanced, I have my auto hide on. Features, just sonar and structure up here on the front. I'll come down here to my network, and this is if you have a 0.1 antenna and you want to use your internal GPS for the bow of your boat, and you want to use the heading sensor, you would go into data sources, GPS, and right now it's selected for auto 0.1. I don't want that. I want my internal GPS on this device, and then I'll go into vessel and I'll hit heading, and I have the 0.1 selected already. So now I'll be using the internal GPS of this, and always having my boat facing, always having the arrow on the screen facing whatever way my boat is actually pointing. Okay, as you can see here, I'm on the back of the boat now, and this is how Phoenix installs all of their structure scan transducers. They have it sitting directly under the jack plate, centered. It's a perfect spot. Now, here's my battery box. This is my cranking battery right here. This is an X2 Power. It's a size 31. You can see the stats on it right here. It's a massive battery. It's basically 2 AGMs in one battery. You need to have a battery like this. It costs $400, but if you're running a lot of electronics, especially big screens, they draw a lot of current, and you don't want to be stranded on the water. I've ran this boat with 3 batteries for 16 hours a day, or with 3 graphs on 16 hours a day, and I've never had my voltage drop below, like 12.4 volts, which is awesome. I hope that the way I have my graph set up and the settings I use can help anybody who hasn't quite got their graphs dialed in yet. This isn't the way that everybody sets their graphs up, but this is just the way that I've set mine up, and I think it works really, really well. And once again, thanks for watching.